Welcome into Locked On Knicks. Alex Wolfe and Gavin Schall here, and your New York Knicks win 122-109, dramatic comeback fashion over the Milwaukee Bucks to take a crucial win on Sunday night. We're going to talk about Jalen Brunson's continued dominance, the Knicks finally starting to figure their depth out in a post-Julius Randle world, and the not-so-great Bulls game at the beginning of the weekend, but what the Knicks can learn from it going into another showdown, a crucial showdown, with the Bulls coming up right now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. And I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in the sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you making us a part of your daily routine. Make sure you hit that auto download function on your favorite podcast app or the notification bell on YouTube so you never miss an episode, because we are here for you guys 5 days a week, sometimes more if breaking news comes out. I'm Alex Wolfe. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site, The Strickland, and you can find Strick.land. And he's Gavin Schall, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster, and your favorite team got a big win over this weekend, Gavin. 122-109 over the Bucks. If I could be completely candid, I was half watching this game for parts. I went back and rewatched most of the important stuff afterwards, but I was half watching this. I was watching WrestleMania as well. And, trying to double duty it on two screens. And I texted you at the end of the first half being like, this kind of seems like it's going towards a loss. Like maybe the substance of this game won't even be all that important. And we'll just be talking about how panicked we are for the potential playoff standings and whatever. But then Jalen Brunson comes through, another 40-plus point game for the Knicks in this one. And on top of it, the Knicks finally start to kind of figure things out with lineups that work without Brunson, and we saw just a totally dominant second half on the way to the Knicks running away with this game in the second half.
Yeah, I got to start off giving a quick shout out to my buddy Scott. Ran into someone playing rec league basketball, Alex. That was my WrestleMania last night. Who listens to the pod? So shout out to Scott. We both scored the same amount of points in the game. It was not a good number, so I'm not going to say what it was, but it was a defensive battle between the two of us. So shout out to Scott. Thanks for listening every single day. But yeah, this was an incredible win for the New York Knicks, 122-109 over the Milwaukee Bucks. And my biggest takeaway was exactly what you said. First of all, was that in a potential second round series that's looking a little bit better for the Knicks, as they are now technically, what I saw everyone throwing out there on Twitter, technically tied for the 3 seed. In reality, they're not actually tied for the 3 seed because the Magic, who benefited from playing the Knicks a bunch when they didn't have Jalen Brunson and were just generally extremely beat up, and had that one game where Paolo hit the game winner late. It was stupid. The Knicks should not have lost 3 games to the Magic. The Magic do have the tiebreaker against the Knicks. So the Knicks are not actually the 3 seed. They have to be a game up on the not on the Bucks, on the Magic when it's all said and done to ultimately be the 3 seed. But now, after this win, because Milwaukee is totally free falling and losing games that they absolutely shouldn't, they're just a game behind Milwaukee too. So that is really, really exciting. And in terms of a potential second round matchup between these two teams, what is readily apparent is they have zero answer to Jalen Brunson, 2 different 40-point games against Milwaukee this year. And we've talked at different times this season when it felt like these teams were playing every other game earlier in the year, how the Bucks were just naturally a very good matchup for him, because obviously Damian Lillard not well equipped to guard Brunson. Milwaukee, because they burned all their assets going to get Lillard, was not able to go and get a different guard that could deal with Jalen Brunson in a meaningful way. And then they have a center in Brook Lopez, who is spectacular, but what he does great, and what the Bucks are back to doing full time, is drop defense. And if you do that against Jalen Brunson, you are going to get torched. And that's what happened tonight. 43 points, 16 of 32 from the field, 2 for 6 for 3, 9 for 11 from the line, 8 assists, 6 rebounds, just 1 turnover in a category that at times has been an issue for Jalen. He was extraordinary, Alex, and the Knicks got just enough around him that Doc Rivers was ready to wave the white flag with about a minute left in this game.
Yeah, that was truly bizarre. Like, the Bucks were sort of on their way back. I mean, there was
straight
about a
threes.
minute
Yeah.
20 left in the game, and it was enough to make you sweat. Like they had made a couple threes in a row, and you're like, oh man, like here comes a stress-filled final minute 20. And then Doc just pulls his starters. And then the Knicks, Donte DiVincenzo hits another three, and then it's kind of just that was it. Like, cool. I guess I'll take it. I don't know. You wonder why the Bucks are kind of free falling at the moment. Maybe it's moments like that. I have not been watching every game, but I'm sure a lot of Bucks fans are not having a great time right now. But Jalen Brunson certainly is. I'm with you. Like this game was just another one of those. I mean, the amount of attention that he draws on defense right now and just continues to put up like 30 plus, 40 plus, 50, 60 plus points any given night is crazy. Like, I mean, this was no exception. I think the Bucks came into this one wanting to try to make him uncomfortable like every team does. But like you said, like they don't really have a guard that can deal with him at all. Like they had Connaughton on him for a bit. Like, um, it just nobody was even close to well equipped enough to do anything to Jalen Brunson at this point. And like you look up and down their roster and you're like, yeah, I mean, I guess they don't really. I mean, even if they threw like Jay Crowder his direction or something, he's just not the player that he used to be. Like
It's
they
kind
don't.
of Patrick Beverly or bust. I don't even know if he's been playing for Milwaukee recently.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know if he's hurt. Like I don't know what the deal is with Beverly, but he wasn't available. So yeah, I don't know. But I'm not going to complain. I enjoyed watching Jalen Brunson torch them over and over and over again. And I thought that, as usual, a lot of that started with the chemistry with Isaiah Hartenstein. As you said, they were able to attack that drop coverage, and Hartenstein managed to have a big game as well as a result. Like, just because if they try to cheat up on Brunson at all, then Hartenstein was right there to just dive to the hoop, and his dives to the hoop have been as deadly as ever lately. I mean, this was just great. Like, especially in the second half, just a truly clicking on all cylinders Knicks team right now, as much as they can without Julius Randle. Like, I think they're still, it's going to be a journey all the way through the playoffs, especially now with OG Anunoby back, like having this like fully healthy minus Julius Randle team. I think it's so important to keep kind of fiddling with stuff here and figure out what's working and what's not. But one thing for sure is like that starting lineup, even without Julius Randle and plus Josh Hart, still very, very much works and can be an elite offense when, they're clicking on all cylinders.
Definitely. And my biggest concern, I mean, not just coming out of the Bulls game, this has been sitting in the back of my head for months now. And I think in a lot of our heads is like, all right, when is it just too much on Jalen Brunson? And maybe we'll get into it more later, but the Bulls game felt like, depending on your perspective, the apex or the nadir of that, where it was like, all right, like literally, like if he doesn't do everything, like I think this is the way our friend Benji Ritholtz phrased it. Like the Knicks, there's not another answer. There's not like, oh, hey, you know what? Jalen doesn't really have it tonight. All right, we're playing the Bucks. Donte, go and get 30, because Donte did go and get 30 in this game, but a lot of it was off of Jalen Brunson drawing 2 or 3 defenders, and he doesn't get close to that if Jalen wasn't having the kind of night that he was having. And in the playoffs, that can kill you, because Brunson, like we saw it against the Cavs, not as much against the Heat, but he did have off nights, and other Knicks were able to step up. And it was Josh Hart that series, like at least for a half, it was Julius Randle that series, and maybe that will happen again. And it's this weird duality of like, I want to get into the Knicks depth, and I thought they performed incredibly well. Bojan Bogdanovic has been on the best run of his short Knicks career, and yet it just feels like without Julius Randle, like this is ultimately going to be the story for the Knicks against a team like Milwaukee. Like either Jalen goes off in a fashion that's maybe not quite this impressive, but pretty close to it, or they're in some trouble. But I wanted to, just before we wrapped up to this first segment, get into some of the specifics of Jalen's night, because I even though it feels commonplace now, I just think it's worth highlighting and appreciating, because guys like this just don't come through the door that often. So for like the third straight game, got off to a really slow start. He was just, or I mean, that Miami game too. So it was, I guess, 3 of the last 4 games, 4 of the last 5. He was just 1 for 5 from the field, then hits a runner, then hits a deep 3. And you're like, all right, now things are working a little bit. Goes on to score 17 of the Knicks' first 25 points. And it's not like Tom Thibodeau was doing him any favors in terms of lineup construction. Like they went back to that Precious Mitch lineup that I don't particularly like, and I think is unplayable if Jalen isn't on the floor. This time they put in Jalen, Donte, and Bogey, so pretty much as much scoring as the Knicks can have at the 1 through 3. And he's like, all right, the smalls play offense, the bigs play defense. Let's see if this works. And it kind of did, because Jalen just in heavy traffic. Like, there was a play where he just totally diced up Chris Middleton. Middleton recovered. Brunson just hits him with the shoulder and then finishes like a diving layup between him and Brook Lopez. That was ridiculous. Second half, I really like this. We saw this from the Knicks earlier this season, where Brunson was a little fresher and was routinely hitting those 30-foot threes. They started having Hartenstein screen for him near half court, so the Bucks didn't actually have a chance to trap him because they didn't see that coming. And one time it gave him a long runway for a layup. Another time, like, he used it to dance and serpentine back into a free throw line jumper. Gave the Knicks, I think it was their first lead, a huge three curling off a Hartenstein screen to make it 66-44. He had 30 points with 5 minutes left in the third quarter, capped off the night, this nasty drive and turnaround jumper to put the Knicks up by 12 late. Like, just to, I know I always go to this word with Jalen, but it felt like another one of those nights where it was a virtuoso performance in Milwaukee, this prideful championship winning team throwing literally everything they could at him, and Brunson was just like screw you guys. Like, Dame Lillard, like, at times was like clapping at him and saying, it was like, let's go. Like I'm Damian freaking Lillard, and Brunson was like, buddy, you're old news. Like, I'm better than you now. So that was so cool to see. When we come back though, Alex, we've explored Jalen Brunson about as much as we can. I want to get into the Knicks depth, because even though outside of DiVincenzo, there weren't a lot of other big scoring performances, I thought this was finally a showcase of sans Julius Randle, what this team can look like fully healthy. And when they made that Pistons trade, we talked about them as the deepest team in the NBA. We finally got to see what that looks like next on Locked On Knicks.
But first, I got to let you all know about our friends over at PrizePicks. And PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less than on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. So March is over. We're into April now, but the biggest moments in college basketball are going to happen today, actually. Yeah, their championship game today. So be a part of the action on PrizePicks for the men's college basketball final. And then in a couple weeks, get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during the basketball postseason. Reminder, the playoffs begin on April 20th, and the play-in is going to be on April 16th, 17th, and 19th. So bookmark those dates if you want to get some PrizePicks entries in. And you can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with basketball, hockey, and college basketball entries today on PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. And I certainly will be picking the over on Jalen Brunson points for the foreseeable future. So that's an easy one for you to get, your entry started on PrizePicks. Just go in there, be like, whatever they have for Jalen Brunson's points, just be like, over, smash that, boom. You've got one instant win. And then maybe you can get those other 3 and potentially get 100 times your money. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, Gavin, we're back in to keep discussing this Knicks win over the Bucks, 122-109. And you know what? I'm really excited to discuss the depth too. But I want to just quickly pose a question, and this can just be a quick one-off answer. Do you think Jalen Brunson has done enough to be first-team All-NBA at this point?
Whew. All right, let's go through, because this is maybe this should be our episode tomorrow. So we're doing some on the fly weekly planning. Guys who should definitely be on it over him. And remember, it's positionless now, so it doesn't matter if we pick another point guard. Giannis needs to be there. That's one. Jokic needs to be there. Luka needs to be there. I'm gonna say SGA needs to be there because he's had a slightly better season. Offensively, they're pretty comparable. Defensively, SGA's been in a different category. So I'm gonna say those are your first 4.
So then who has a better case for number 5?
Jason Tatum has a pretty good one. Has he done as much as Jalen Brunson? It's hard. Brunson's been a dramatically more important part of a team that's won 16 less games. That's a philosophical debate. I think you kind of have to reward the Celtics for being a 62-win team, but and Tatum for being the better defender. But I just think Brunson's been like, how much worse would the Celtics be without? I think they're probably a 50-win team. The Knicks are like a 30-win team without Brunson. What's the gap there from good to great versus bad to like maybe a top 3 seed? I don't know. And I'm probably missing like another pretty clear-cut name in there that I'm just not thinking of at this moment. Like you could look at the Suns guys. There's really no one else in the West that should be in the mix. Embiid obviously is disqualified. He missed too many games. Halliburton and Mitchell fell off with injuries. I mean, there's a good case for it. He might be. I'll say this: my bold prediction of Jalen Brunson top 5 MVP finish, like not looking super crazy right now.
Yeah, unless you ask NBA.com and their MVP
Right.
ladder, which
I
is,
want to say words I can't say about
which has left him off for the entire season and has not put him in the top 10, which is insane.
Yeah. Bonus is on there over him.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But yeah, I think I'm with you. We could probably bank this for an off day between games this week. But I think there's a real case, man. Just when you were talking about it, I was like, who else has a better case than him right now? Like to fit that 5th spot. Because I agree with your top 4. I think like there's just too much talent and scoring and counting stats along with team success, like with those other guys that it's tough to make a case that Brunson should be on there above any of those 4. But yeah, man, I don't know. I would probably give it to him over Tatum just because I think he's more crucial to the team itself. But let's talk about the team itself and the depth. I really liked what the Knicks pulled out in this game as far as some of the depth usage here. So there was a Deuce, Donte, Bogdanovic, OG Anunoby, and Mitch lineup at the start of the 4th that was surprisingly the lineup that actually sort of buried the Bucks a bit. It gave the Knicks a 10-point lead at that point off of Bogdanovic 3, where he just kind of strolled right into it and pulled up and hit a nice 3. And honestly, that lineup, I think, finally found something with the mix of defense and offense. Like Deuce and OG were forcing turnovers. Like Deuce was getting out in transition. He was able to attack a bent defense, which was great. I mean, if you had honestly, as much as I hate to give the lesser team that beat the Knicks the other day credit, but like if you had like an Alex Caruso or something in transition against Deuce on a couple of those possessions, I maybe don't know if he's able to finish them off quite as well. But Deuce was able to kind of get the defense tilted a little bit, got inside for a nice layup, hit a corner 3 at one point, but like he had a little mini offensive explosion. You had OG like getting his hand on every ball, Mitch dominating Giannis like one-on-one, which was crazy. And then Bogdanovic providing the offense, Donte obviously there with the shooting. I think the Knicks finally found something, and this has been one of the biggest issues lately with the Knicks as a team, is that the second that Brunson sits down, you're basically like saying, okay, like open up the wound. We're gonna bleed for whatever, like 5 minutes when he's sitting and just trying to get a small bit of rest. And then, he gets back in, and then the Knicks have to claw back and make up for all the ground they lost while Brunson was on the bench. I think this was finally a good combination. And honestly, I thought Bogdanovic, and I feel like a broken record because I've been trying to sing Bogdanovic's praises for weeks now, but like, I think that he was the key. And I think that getting OG back and being able to throw him in a lineup with OG and Deuce, so there's nothing lost on defense, plus Mitch anchoring everything. So that's like 3 plus defenders out there with Bogdanovic and with Donte DiVincenzo providing the shooting. I think that was the key to kind of figuring this out. And I really love that bench lineup, and I hope the Knicks go back to it a lot, because I think it's one that they can rely on to, at the bare minimum, not cede ground while Brunson is sitting, which is the key.
Yeah, I think it's a great call to highlight that lineup, because I think it's one, again, knock on every piece of wood in your house, like those guys all stay healthy. Like that is what you're going to have to go to. You just have to scrape for every single bit of offense you can find. And the great news about that lineup, to your point, like OG Anunoby, Mitchell Robinson on the floor together. This is the first 2 games we've gotten to see it. And I think the Bucks game is the first game we really got to see it, because we'll talk about it. But OG was clearly still finding his footing against the Bulls, you should be an overwhelmingly good defensive team. And then offensively, I look at Bogdanovic, and I think I came on this pod like maybe exactly a week ago from today and said, all right, it's time to call the trade a failure. Like, right, it just doesn't work. And in my mind, part of that calculus was, all right, this team is going to have Julius Randle back in the next week to 10 days. And then there's a world where like we're not even seeing Bogey play during the playoffs. But lo and behold, Julius is gone. And all of a sudden it's like, all right, like this trade went from insurance to like now you're new Julius. And it's not to the same extent because obviously Bogey isn't going to be starting games most nights, even in the playoffs. And almost no matter how well he plays, he's not going to be finishing games over Josh Hart. But in those non-Brunson minutes, like he becomes the fulcrum of this offense, which Alex, I know is exactly what you've been calling for. And now he did not have a good game against the Bulls. I mean, maybe we'll talk about that a little bit. But in this one, like for the third time in 4 games, and like the Heat game really started this run, like against a really good defense, like he was everything the Knicks needed. Like came into the game when again, it was all Jalen Brunson early, like 17 of the first 25 points. And he was the lone bit of help, like immediately started off 3 for 3. Like he's done such a good job. I've been so impressed with his mid-range game of late, just having an ability to find gaps, like hit a floater, hit a pump and go baseline jumper, hit a bank shot early. And then coming back in the fourth quarter, like immediately like gets to the line, drive and dish to Donte DiVincenzo for 3. That 3 in Bobby Portis's eye, like that is probably the best shot he's hit as a Knicks. And as a Knick, and just the swagger and confidence he has, as good as Donte DiVincenzo has been, I just don't think there's anyone else on this roster, sans Brunson and sans a healthy Randall, that has the confidence offensively that Bogdanovic brings to the table. And if you were going to like put me at like a water gun point and say like, all right, like where does this team lose in the playoffs? It was that like when it comes down to it, like in crucial situations, like everyone's just going to be staring at Jalen Brunson. The Knicks are going to know it. The other team's going to know it. You and I and the 10 million Knicks fans watching at home are all going to know it, that he's the only guy capable of shooting and scoring the basketball. I think Bogdanovic is ascending to a point now where if he's on the floor, he's a real threat to confidently shoot and finish in those crucial moments. And to me, that's a separator from this team, maybe scraping their way out of the first round and potentially playing the Bucks and beating the Bucks in the second round. I don't know if they can go much further than that. But that's what's exciting about this team. And that's where Bogdanovic, to me, out of all the good bench things we've seen develop in this game and the last few games, like I think he's the biggest deal at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I want to finish singing Bogdanovic's praises and continue my my tireless campaign to get him more playtime in the next segment, as well as we'll revisit the loss to the Bulls on to start the weekend and what it could mean for a crucial second matchup with the Bulls coming right up that the Knicks are probably going to have to win if they want to keep their playoff standing here. But we'll get into that in just a second in the next segment.
When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. So I can speak on this from the being hired perspective and just the sheer volume that LinkedIn brings to the table. And you have connections that can help you get work that you don't even realize. Like I had an old friend who I like, it was a stretch to even call this guy a friend because we didn't even overlap in work, but I met him through someone else I worked with at the NFL and I ended up getting a job to work for CBS Sports. It was super cool. I got to fly out to Eugene, Oregon, work in Oregon, UCLA basketball game, one of the better professional experiences of my life. And it all happened just because I was on LinkedIn and someone said, hey, like, I see that you work in stats. Like, how about this for a job at like one of the best companies in the world, or if not the best company in the world, broadcasting college basketball. And LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals. That's what I'm getting at here. And it makes it the best place to hire or be hired. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So, Alex, I know before we move on from Bogdanovic, you wanted to highlight the playing time factor because he's been so good in these games and yet is not often finishing them, though I thought it was it was telling that, like, in terms of Tom Thibodeau's trust in him, like we've seen Bogey, like, all right, that short stretch at the start of the second, short stretch to start the first. And oftentimes when Jalen Brunson has come back on the floor, that's been it for him, right? And he's gone off his last few games as he's shot the ball better, as he's shown off even more confidence. We've seen him share the court with Jalen for stretches. And in this game, 15 points in 17 minutes. I think we'd both like to see that number go up another 5 minutes. Josh Hart playing 37 in this one, 9 rebounds, 9 assists. Obviously, what he does on the defensive end is just essential. But I think, to me, the turning point here is not just that Bogdanovic is more confident. It's that you have Anunoby back. It's that you have Mitchell Robinson back. And you just have more ways than ever to protect Bogdanovic. But I think there's a couple more minutes at the end of these games to find for him. And I know you agree on that.
Yeah, I would love if we could start seeing him get more like 25 minutes a game and maybe get Josh Hart back down to like 30. And I don't think that's a stretch. And I'm sure Josh Hart would not disagree with that either. I mean, he's been saying for months now, playing, 40 to 45 to 48 minutes per game, that he's like, man, it's getting to be a bit much. And of course he'll keep doing it. He'll play as much as he has to and help the team win. That's why that's why he is the guy that he is for this team. And why he's revered by his teammates and everything else. But I think that it would be beneficial for the Knicks to keep finding more time for Bogdanovic, because here's the other thing too, is like, we saw Burks not get, play time in this game. And I think that's going to be a common theme going forward, because I just don't think that Burks has been providing anything of value when he's on the court, which, as much as I hate to say it, because when he goes out there, it seems like he views his assignment as, I have to go out here and I have to shoot the ball as many times as possible. And we see that manifest in a way where he's not trying to keep teammates involved and stuff like that. Bogdanovic, I don't think we're seeing that. I think he is going out there understanding, like, yes, I'm out here to score the ball, but I don't think that he does it in a way that's like counterproductive to the offense as a whole. Like, he's not an unwilling ball mover. He's not just going head down or head up in some cases, but just staring directly at the hoop, not looking for anyone or anything else other than a shot for himself. He's looking for a shot, obviously, and he has no issues with pulling the trigger. And when he's playing as well as he has and shooting as well as he has recently, like, that's great, because you want him to go out there and just be ready at a drop of a hat to, hit 3 3-pointers or something and, potentially swing the course of a game. But, I think more of him can only do good. I don't think there's any way that ends up harming the team right now, because, if he goes out there and he's not in a rhythm right away, you give him a little more time on the floor, and then maybe he finds that rhythm and then he makes those few shots for you. I also just think it'll be good for keeping the team fresh. And also, like, now is the time. I know it's kind of tricky because every single second of every game matters right now, because you need to win every game possible to try to secure that higher seeding. But now is the time to sort of experiment a little bit and, figure out who he works best with, because I think that he is still, if you look up and down this roster right now in a post Julius Randle world, after Brunson, he is the second best guy at creating his own shot on this roster, point blank period. I don't think there's any debate that he can do that better than Deuce McBride. He can do that better than Josh Hart. He can do that better than Donte DiVincenzo. And he could do that better than OG Anunoby as well. He's pretty much the only guy that you can throw the ball and just say, figure something out that's not named Jalen Brunson on this team. And those are the sort of players that you do need in the end, in a playoff series. You need a guy like that other than your superstar. We see it with every other team in the league. They have at least one other guy that can put the ball on the floor, find a shot, look across the floor. Like Chris Middleton made a huge difference. I'm not saying that Bogdanovic is Chris Middleton, but he's the closest thing the Knicks have to a secondary scorer like that can go out there and do something like that. Now, obviously, the Bucks also have Damian Lillard now too, in addition to Giannis, which is why they're so deep. And if their coach doesn't hold them back, they could be potentially a finals contender if they're able to put it together. But I think that's just the greatest case I can come up with to play Bogdanovic more. Of course, then we have some of the poorer games, like the game against the Bulls on Friday, which maybe make you say, I don't know about that. But Gavin, I don't know, that Bulls game felt, I don't know if I want to call it fluky. I mean, the Knicks deserved to lose because they came out and just did not treat the Bulls with respect early on. And then they got completely flummoxed, like Tibbs especially got completely flummoxed by this weird too big lineup that the Bulls decided to go with, where they threw Nikola Vucevic and Andre Drummond out there at the same time, which just seems insane. And yet they just like out rebounded the crap out of the Knicks, and the Knicks insisted on going with Precious Achiuwa when he wasn't playing as well as like their second big out there, when probably the move would have just been to say, okay, fine, if you guys want to get the defensive rebounds or whatever, we're just going to send a lineup out there that can run all over you and put this game away. But the Knicks ultimately were, in a big hole early again, which has, been a consistent theme for them in a lot of games lately. And then we're just not able to crawl out of that hole and end up losing what now is sort of a crucial game, because had they won that game, they would be a half game back on the Bucks for the 2 seed right now and ahead of the Magic, I think.
They would. They would be tied with the Bucks.
Or they would be tied with the Bucks.
But the Bucks have the tiebreaker. So
yeah, so that's right. They would be tied with the Bucks right now. Yeah, because there's no half games between them. So I mean, that could have been a crucial game, and yet they lost it. Now they have another one coming right up. So hopefully they're able to kind of learn from some of the mistakes from this game and take them into the next one.
Yeah, and look, I mean, Javonte Green had a career night. That was a little bit of a fluke. OG 29 minutes in that game. We saw that minutes limit just fly out the window against Milwaukee, which I think is why the Knicks, I don't, even though the Knicks ended up winning by 13, I don't know if I think it's 50-50 if they win, if you take 9 minutes away from Anunoby, because even though against Milwaukee, like he had a really poor offensive game, just 2 for 10, 0 for 5 from 3. I mean, what he did defensively on Giannis at points, like especially in the second half, was pretty extraordinary. He finished this game with 4 steals and 2 blocks. And at times, it was so frustrating watching Giannis just like bowl over Anunoby, who is this freakishly strong dude. And then you just realize, like, all right, like we went out and we got the best wing defender in the NBA, and Giannis is just on another level, so it doesn't even matter. And it turns out, and this is like another one of those things I'm keeping an eye on. If the Knicks do get to the second round, do get the Bucks, and you highlighted this earlier, that maybe Mitchell Robinson at the end of the day is the best matchup for Giannis. Like he got like an absolutely sick help side block on him, and then ended that possession with what on replay looked like a foul, but in the moment looked like a second straight block. And we're like, all right, let's go. Mitch is Giannis's number. But what Anunoby didn't help in the second half of this game against the Bucks was just incredible. Like over and over again, just digging in. Like there was a time late where it was Brook Lopez had like a pump and go drive, and Anunoby just seemed like he teleported there and got to the ball twice in transition. He like once it was a foul, but he blocked Giannis to stop him from getting an and one. Another transition, like he got back and stripped Giannis. Like you could just see where Anunoby is like some guys who are special defenders. It's entirely on the basis of them just being physical outliers. Like Anunoby is that, but just technically he like his everything that someone like an Alex Caruso has as well. So I look for Anunoby in that next Bulls game to even be at a higher level defensively, where it looked like at times of the first half, DeRozan was pretty comfortable going at him. I think that could make a big difference. Obviously, Donte DiVincenzo is going to come into this game just a little bit more confident after not really doing much against the Bulls and actually like having some pretty poor stretches offensively in that game. Like he hit, like we haven't even gotten to it yet, but the shot of the night against the Bucks that basically put the game away was 111, 103. Totally dead possession. And the Knicks, like this is where they get into trouble late in games where they're so reliant on Jalen. Like Jalen got trapped early in the possession, and like the roll was kind of taken away. Nothing was there. Ball ends up in Donte's hands. Has to make a play out of nowhere, and just froze Bobby Portis with like this like fake rip through jab. And Portis didn't know that the shot clock was winding down. Donte just put one in his eye. Next possession, drive and kick back to Donte. He hits another 3. Game over there. So that was all exciting. And then Mitchell Robinson, like I thought as this Bucks game went along, like he really got into a rhythm where early on, and like Alan Hahn, I thought did a great job on the broadcast highlighting this. Like it just sort of seems like he's getting into shape, but the fine motor skills haven't totally come back. Like over and over again through the first 3 quarters of the Buck game, you saw him getting to offensive rebounds and them just slipping through his hands. And then like he started getting them. Like as this game went along, I mentioned the blocks on Giannis, but also had one on Connaughton where he went flying across the lane. He blocked a Damian Lillard 3. It feels like athletically Mitch is where you need him to be. And to your point on those 2 big lineups, It just sort of feels like if Mitch is playing at his best, maybe go with Mitch over Hartenstein just because as a single big, like he can flip the narrative on the glass, which to me, like that was sort of the story of that Bulls game. Like initially it was DeSumo just being too fast off the dribble and just kind of torching Brunson, torching DiVincenzo, torching whoever came on them. And then Javonte Green was just a physical freak. And it just kind of felt like the Bulls had more juice. I think with the day off between games, the Knicks can get that back. But to me, Mitch and Anunoby like playing big minutes is kind of crucial to that. But Hartenstein, like if you want to talk about this, Alex, I'll let you get into it because I've been yapping on for like 5 minutes now. He was a completely different player in these two games. Like I thought he sucked against Chicago. It was one of his worst games since we've seen him get fully healthy. And then the game against Milwaukee, like arguably like top 3 game of the season for him.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to matchups there, right? Like I do think that Hartenstein, for as great as he is, sometimes when you run up against those teams that have like the truly huge big men, like let's put it this way: I think if Isaiah Hartenstein had to go up against Mitchell Robinson in a game, that it would be really tough for him because I think that Hartenstein thrives when he can use his timing and like his length and everything else, and like his considerable bulk for against like 90% of the NBA. I think that he does really well. But then every once in a while you run into an Andre Drummond who's just like one of the biggest humans in basketball that just can bully you around and whatever. And I think that those are the matchups that Hartenstein struggles with a little bit, because if he can't outmuscle you like as a bigger player, it's a little tough for him to establish his rhythm like on the boards and stuff. And then I think it can sometimes be a little hard for him to establish his rhythm on offense too, if he's able to be just like muscled away from the rim, because so much of what he's doing lately is, just getting in there. Like sometimes it's just via speed, and cutting to the hoop really quickly off a Brunson pick and roll or whatever, and getting that pocket pass in there that he just takes up for a dunk. And he's already left his, defender in the dust because they're trying to deal with Brunson. But a lot of times what he does on offense is he gets that ball and then just kind of does the quick shoulder throw and then a dunk underneath or whatever. And I think if he's not able to do that, it starts to take away from him a little bit. And especially the rebounds. I think that much like you talk about with some players, like the shooting has to be there for the rest of their game to be there. I think that like the toughness and the rebounding has to be there for Hartenstein to kind of get him going and get his juices flowing. And then that can sort of dictate the rest of his night some days. So yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like, I think if the Knicks find themselves in that too big situation again, I hope they roll with Mitch out there and then don't go with Precious and try. Like, this is one of the biggest problems with Tibbs and always has been. He tries to match serve too often rather than trying to dictate things himself. And so, I think that he sees two bigs out there and says, well, I got to throw two bigs out there. But I'm not going to throw Hartenstein and Mitch out there because that's absurd. But I'll throw Precious out there. Yeah. And it just doesn't work, especially because Precious hasn't been playing as well lately. And so hopefully he sort of sees that going into the second Bulls matchup and can say, hey, let's throw Anunoby out there at the 4, maybe Bogdanovic, keep Mitch out there at the 5, and then have like Brunson and like Deuce or something out there. And then you've got enough defense and some shooting and some rebounding, or you could just throw Donte DiVincenzo out there instead of Deuce. And like, then you've got a lot of shooting and you could just kind of run them off the floor. So hopefully he goes that direction rather than going the too big lineup again. But Gavin, unless you have anything else to add, I think we can probably wrap up this weekend of games. Good way to end the weekend, even if that Bulls game wasn't the best way to start it. But hopefully an opportunity for the Knicks to do something really good here and position themselves well for the playoffs in the next week and change.
Yeah, I just wanted to, very last thing. Isaiah Hartenstein had like maybe the best hustle play I've seen anyone on the Knicks make all year, especially given his size. And that is on a team with Josh Hart and Deuce McBride. That's a tough award to win. But the play where he just broke on that pass and then tipped it, and then it was still up for grabs. And then he dove again to literally punch it out to Donte, who hit Bogey up the floor for a layup. Like that was extraordinary. So shout out to Isaiah Hartenstein. Shout out to this Knicks team that, a team that like always, like for most of my life, managed to disappoint in the worst way. This team is the opposite of that. They like the second you're like, all right, they've lost too much. There's not enough scoring. Like it's just not going to happen this year. We're finally getting to see a version of this team at full strength. It would be really cool if Julius Randle was here, but like the one we saw last night against the Bucks team that the first 3 games of the year they played, just bullied the Knicks into submission. This was great to see, and it gives me kind of renewed hope that there's still a conference finals running here. The Knicks, the 4 seed as of now, half a game up on the Cavs, game and a half up on the Pacers. We will see if they can hold on to it, and we will have you covered this entire week. He's Alex. I'm Gavin. We'll talk to you very, very soon on Locked On Knicks.